catching you in non-market hours and not in market hours like we usually do. You're part of the jury this year for the ET Startup Awards. What's going to be different this time? We're seeing a lot of IT names in the jury. We have you, we have Nandan Nilekani, we have Rishad Premji, apart from the startup names, of course. But what really stands out for you this year as far as the ET Startup Awards are concerned? What stands out for you? What are you looking forward to from all these nominees across various categories?
Well, I think there are two aspects that is different this time. One is we've got a diversity in the set of nominations which truly represent the startup ecosystem in India, and it brings out the best in terms of the talent that's creating this ecosystem. So that's really one thing. The second is, we are really at a inflection point in the growth of the startup ecosystem in India, because we've seen about 3 cycles starting from 2001 to 2010 to now again. So it's interesting to see how companies have scaled, what size of investments they've drawn in, and what type of entrepreneurs have succeeded in India. So in a sense, the results from this time's process will be indicative of what it takes to succeed in India.
Right. And so, what it takes to succeed in India, startups have often been accused of, just copying models from the West and replicating it here and, raising huge amounts of funding and scaling it up, that they are not focusing enough on the Bharat market, on India-specific problems. Do you think that's going to be different this time around? Is the jury, going to focus on startups that have perhaps solved or are solving very India-specific issues? Is that something that you will look at when you vet these startups come Monday?
That's a very good question. In fact, the sustainability of any business depends intrinsically on its ability to solve society's problems and how technology can be used to make life easier for citizens. So some of the pointers to winners could be actually the ability to build sustainable models that continually work at sorting out problems in society using technology. So I think that's going to be something that we're going to see in this time's process.
Right. Mr. Isaac, in the last few weeks, after a drought of funding, perhaps in 2015, 2016, you are seeing a lot of unicorns emerge in the Indian startup space. Swiggy in the food tech space, Policy Bazaar in the insurance space. You also had a startup founded by Indians in the US, Automation Anywhere, that became a unicorn. So when you look at all these factors, do you think that, the green shoots are back as far as the startup ecosystem is concerned, or are we celebrating too early? Is this going to be a focal point of discussion? I mean, is the focus going to be just on scale, growth, or are cash flows going to be equally critical when you look at some of these startups?
I think two things have impacted the rate of change of success in the startup environment. One is the capital markets activity that really been active in the last couple of years. A number of companies have been able to go to public markets and find exits for investors. And the second one is the formalization of the Indian green shoots that you're seeing in the market today is a function of the fact that the environment is also more conducive to making startups succeed. And that's, I think, a key point to keep in mind while seeing the evolution of the startup, ecosystem in India.
Right. Final couple of questions, Mr. Isaac. What category are you personally excited about? They've just unveiled nominees in 2 categories today, Bootstrap Champ and Innovators. But I think categories that people really look forward to include Startup of the Year and, the Midas Touch for the Best Investor. Which one are you looking forward to?
I'm looking forward to the Midas Touch one because that shows a consistency of ability in terms of spotting winners and not only just spotting them, but also backing them to make it through the finish line. So that's what I'm really looking forward to.
Right. Mr. Isaac, I also noticed there's a very heavy Koramangala bias in the jury. There's you, there's Nanda Nilekani, and there's Sachin Bansal. So is this going to be a reunion of sorts for friends from Bangalore?
Well, it's just that we have a friendly neighborhood, I think, so for the ecosystem, and Koramangala has spawned a number of successful startups. It continues to do so in the future, so I'm hoping that over the years the flag will fly with new entrepreneurs coming out of Koramangala.
Right. Final question, sir. What plans do you have in terms of looking at startups? I mean, is this something that Quess Corp will look at from a strategic perspective, from a mentorship perspective? And, do you see yourself being an active investor going forward? The Quess Corp IPO obviously went off very well. Your net worth's also gone up. Can we see you using some of those funds to invest in the India startup story, Mr. Isaac?
So actually, as we speak right now, I'm right now in Tel Aviv. I've just spent a day with an incubator here meeting about 7 or 8 startups. We think that some of the technologies that will come from the higher end research, cities of the world like San Francisco and Tel Aviv will drive some of the new businesses in India. We are well poised to make some investments in some of the space. I think we will look at an incubator ourselves at some point of time. It is an area of great interest to us.